Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to some more Warpforge content, and I really couldn't wait. We've got like 2 more days of previews where I guess we're going to close in on something like 40 cards, maybe even more, because I don't know how many more legendaries we're going to get. Maybe they're following the same formula, we'll see. But there's been some really crazy moments, and thank you anyone who was able to join for the live premiere of my video, which was an hour early, which just got to get better at doing time conversion if I'm going to play this game and make content for it. But thanks for being there. Also, if you just checked out the video and gave it a like, gave it a view, I really appreciate that. It was great to see kind of the channel buzzing almost back to when I first started doing this. So I really was happy to see people hype and also maybe dreading some of the new things that are coming. So what are we doing today? I couldn't wait to give some first impressions specifically about the mechanics and just thinking about in the context of the meta right now. And if you have not caught BJ the Brave's meta report, I highly, highly recommend that. I think he's excellent at articulating why decks are strong, why the meta is the way it is, how to respond to the meta as well. I think he's got some videos coming out on that pretty soon. And so I thought we'd even just have a little bit of an aside here and there of where we think Tau are going to fit into the meta, and sort of what does that look like. So just to give a little bit of a snapshot of where I am, I've been playing a ton of this particular war boss and give you a little preview of a video that I'm doing probably after this one, or fairly soon after. Just having a blast, honestly, trying different things, and I've been kind of wanting to get back out and give Gordrang a try, and honestly I think I've found something that's a bit more successful for this meta, so I'm pretty excited for that. So I think 3,300 is the cutoff for leaderboard. I definitely want to make a pretty good go of it these last 2 weeks of the season, and the meta is so different from last season, so maybe I'll even do a separate video on that. Just let me know if that's something you would like to hear me talk a bit about, because I always talk far too much, but it's too fun not to. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the Tau, and I'm just taking these from the Discord. So we got BJ here in spirit. So Markerlight. This has been compared to, I think it's called Sentence or Sentencing in HHL. Unfortunately, I never really got into that game, and I've just been super invested in playing Warpforge and kind of mastering that and getting good at that. But honestly, at some point I really should go and play HHL. I think there's just obviously the EG card game sphere. It might be fun to get into that. But for now, we're really focusing on Warpforge, and I think that's a good place to be for the channel for me for now. So Markerlight, it's not the same as Sentencing as I understand it, and to the degree that it might be a little bit less powerful. So what does it do if you missed it? When this unit receives a ranged attack, it receives X additional damage and loses basically the Markerlight tag. And I'm so excited to see what the animation looks like. And also, the team has been cleaning up a lot of the graphics recently. I think it was like for Eldar and I think for Orcs as well. So it's just visually, the game is just looking a lot better when we're going to have more and more stuff kind of happening on the board. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. This just inherently does seem pretty powerful, right? Because if we think about the idea of this game being really based around tempo, right? And we're in a really interesting place in the meta, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But I think generally the game has revolved around tempo, at least early on with the cards that we have access to. So having units that essentially are like, maybe not even a card and a half, but essentially it's like, here's the unit, and it's also giving you an additional piece of value, right? So we think about like maybe something that would also get like a Dark Pact, right? And then gets a buff on top of the body that it already provides. Except Markerlight also applies to everything else that you have on the board, essentially, right? Because even if it's just your Warlord, and we've only seen one Tau Warlord, but I'm super excited for that guy. Your Warlord, you have a unit, you have, let's say, Markerlight 2, right? That means that your Warlord that turn gets essentially an additional 2 range damage if you're going to hit, right? And then your unit for, you know, the following turn, as long as Markerlight is still there and we haven't attacked, then we can utilize it. So I think the play pattern with these cards is probably going to be, okay, if you drop it and you need to clear the unit, you're going to like make a ranged attack with your Warlord. I am wondering if they're going to have a Warlord with 3 ranged attack and 2 melee attack, and just kind of, or 1 melee attack, and sort of swap it up. With Markerlight, I think that would be very, very powerful. So we'll see how crazy they are coming out the gate. But it gets you value up front, right? And you'll get the ranged attack and just pop off the Markerlight if you really need to clear something. Or you can just strategically use melee attacks, right? Or stay away from the Markerlight target, which in some cases might be the Warlord, where you would opt for like a melee hit instead of a ranged hit, so that the following turn you can maybe blast them out, you know, with your board advantage. I just think that cards that kind of essentially like add this, I think a lot of the Magic players have kind of coined this term of like, you know, a square, right? It's like, it's adding some like other kind of marker of value, right, that is just kind of tacked on to each card. And so I just imagine a lot of the Markerlight cards, obviously probably more rares, epics, and legendaries, are going to be more playable. I'm not sure about the commons that are going to have Markerlight, but it just seems like it's just extra value that you will be able to take advantage of for the most part. There may be some cases where it's a little awkward, but I think Markerlight is just going to be pretty strong out of the gate. We'll see. I could definitely be wrong, but I just feel like this kind of ability is just value central. And so let's take a look at some of the cards, right? So Firesight Marksman, also previewed by BJ the Brave, right? So this is a 5 energy, 2/4, obviously a little bit slanted towards the ranged attack. It's got stealth, and you'll notice that many of some of the most powerful looking cards have stealth. And so we'll see how that all plays out. I know for myself, I don't love playing against stealth all the time unless I'm playing orcs, because it just feels like I can't really outplay, right? And at times I felt like that against Eldar, but I don't know. I can't be too down on the cards already, because I'm just excited to play them. So stealth, when you deploy a drone, give it +1 ranged attack, so it's going to be buffing your drones as well. So there could be some nice setup with that. And then rally, when it comes into play, give Markerlight 3 to an enemy troop. So it's not going to hit the Warlord, right? Because it specifies that. But essentially what you're getting, right, is like a pretty solid body. You know, it's got 5 health. It will be, you know, they'll be able to clear it. But baseline, you've got a ranged stealth unit that should survive and see the next turn, right? And then take advantage of the Markerlight if you need to, right? Which is potentially 7 range damage off of just the marksman, notwithstanding, you know, your Warlord potentially attacking as well. So what's interesting, you know, a lot of people were saying, where are the flank cards? Like, what's going on? I think Markerlight essentially kind of gives you that similar value, right? It's not up front, right? It's not like, oh, I can play this and Markerlight it and hit it, right? And there are, I think, 2 or 3 flank units that we've seen. But Markerlight essentially means that, like, your next turn, your things are going to hit really hard, right? So it's kind of giving you, it's like you're investing in things being able to do a bunch of damage the following turn, right? Which can kind of set you up to, you know, essentially like flank or take something out, not immediately, but the following turn with a lot of health. So I think about chaos, right? So there's a huge unit that you need to get rid of, and it's got camouflage. But before it's got camouflage, oh no, because rally goes through camouflage, I believe. So I'll double check that. But you Markerlight it, right? And then the following turn, as like when you would normally play like a flank card or something like that, essentially you've got a unit or your Warlord on the board to take advantage of that to then clear that unit, right? So it's almost like it's kind of just like a delayed flank in a sense. It's kind of how I'm thinking about it. So I think you know, cards like this just give you a lot of value, especially because there are a lot of drones that you're probably going to want to play, and just having this baseline of when you play one, you're getting a bonus just seems solid to me. So I'm pretty excited for Firesight Marksman. Sorry about the quality. This is not the best grab that I was able to get. But then let's look at a stratagem like Coordinated Engagement give Markerlight 3 to an enemy troop for 3. In terms of like cost efficiency and value, like that's like okay, right? And this is kind of like Tau's unconditional removal card or removal card, because then the second clause is if it already has Markerlight, destroy it instead, right? So obviously it doesn't apply to a warlord, it applies to only troops, but Markerlight 3, right, is pretty valuable because baseline that means that your warlord can deal 5 to something, right? So that's not too bad. And the fact that there are incidental ways to Markerlight things, there's actually a drone that does it, I think at random, means that coordinated engagement does turn into a full-on removal spell. And I think this is going to see play. I'd be really surprised if coordinated engagement didn't. It just seems like it's already like fine on the Markerlight 3 side. Like it's not excellent, it's fine. And then depending on how easy it is to get the Markerlight condition, and I guess that's what we're going to have to test, then it's 3 energy to destroy something that you want to destroy, right? There's a reason No Mucking About is excellent, right? That has to do with stealth, that has to do with targeting. There's a reason Inspired Retribution is still pretty good as a 5 energy removal spell. I just think that coordinated engagement is going to put in the work, and I just do think most decks are going to want to be running it. So that's probably enough about Markerlight. Let me keep it moving here. Let's talk about companions. There's a lot here, right? But essentially, when this card is played from hand, you can play up to X copies of its companion the same turn, right? So troops with this mechanic will have a text, for example, Companion 2, Guardian Drone, and we're going to talk about that guy, which means that after you play the troop from hand, you get an ephemeral copy of Guardian Drone in hand. So you get the first one. If you play it, then you get the second one. Trade is similar to Tide Axe, except that in the troop that will appear in your hand is different from the original that you played, right? Because it's there, you're getting drones. You're not getting a copy of the card that you already played. So, you know, just think about this as basically like sort of like Kicker from Magic, if you're familiar with that. That essentially you can pay the regular cost for the unit or the card that you're playing, and then you essentially, it's kind of like, it's modal in the sense that, or flexible in its casting cost, because then you can opt in for the companion 1 to XYZ. And if you've got the energy that lines up in that turn, great, you get an extra drone. But if you need to play it ahead of schedule, or essentially like on curve without the ability to play the drones, then you can. From a Magic background, any card that is able to be somewhat flexible in its casting cost tends to be good, like just baseline. So I think that anything with Companion is going to net you some pretty nice value. I don't know that every Companion card is going to be a staple, so we're going to talk about some of them today, but I do think that the mechanic just blends and meshes really, really well with a lot of the drone synergies and different things, like even that first card that we looked at, right, where like we can play this, then maybe play something with Companion. Great, the drones that I just put into play are also going to be buffed, right? So there's like all this kind of like value that you're accruing without really having to do too much with it. And in the late game, right, like you get into overtime, then great, all of your things have extra value, so that have Companion. So let's take a look at Enforcer Battlesuit. Super hyped for this guy. 6 energy, 6 health, really beefy attack stats. It's got Vanguard, which, you know, makes it even more attractive, because maybe you'd be able to ignore this. And adjacent units have +1 range attack, so this also includes your Warlord, right? So like, floor of this card, play it on 6, your Warlord can attack for 3 ranged, right? Again, we're seeing like the synergy with Markerlight, right? And then it's got Companion 2, where you can play 1 or 2 or 0 Companion drone or Guardian drone. So what is a Guardian drone? Pretty easy to guess. It's got Vanguard, it's got 3 health, attack stats are abysmal, but what Vanguard and Stealth allow you to do for a lot of your drones is set up, right? So this is Tau, basically. It's almost like Chaos in a sense, like the way that Black Legion plays, where it's like, if you let them set up, they will kill you. So I feel like where Tau may land is like, any deck that's pretty good on tempo should be able to keep up with them, but also they're the newest they're the first expansion, newest faction added to the game. So maybe they'll just be a little too powerful coming out the gate, where tempo decks are going to sort of struggle, and it's maybe control decks that can do a better job of just, orcs per se, right? Because they still have the one and only unconditional board clear in the game, that could really do some damage. So Enforcer Battlesuit, I think, is a pretty exciting card. The floor on this card is totally solid, and then the upside that you can play it on 6, 7, or 8, right? Because this drone costs 1, is just excellent, right? It just, I think that anytime where you get to opt in or opt out of value, stapled to a card that has essentially like a really solid floor already, is something worth being excited about. So let's look at another example of companion as well. And I didn't want to just shout out all the powerful cards right away, but Strike Team, right? So 4 energy, 5 health, pretty rough melee stats, of course, from the fire team, but solid range stats. So I'm thinking about other 4-drops. I mean, there's some 4-drops that have similar stat lines in Black Legion. Definitely different allocated attack stats in the Chaplain for Ultramarines. But again, and so maybe you've got Markerlight set up and you're like, great, if this thing lives, then it's going to swing for 8. However, the fact that it's got 2 melee attack and 5 health is not all that hard by turn 4 or 5 to deal with. I'm not sure Strike Team is going to make the cut, but what do you get out of it, right? So there's the DS8 support turret. At the start of your turn, deal 2 damage to all enemies. And unlike some of the other drones, this has 5 health. So like very, very big health pool compared to some of the other 2 and 3 cross drones, which are coming in at like anywhere from 1 to 3 health. So the question is this card worth it, right? So we can play it on 4, right? Or we can curve into it on 7. And then we get Strike Team and we get the DS8 support turret. Problem with the support turret, of course, and a lot of the drones, right, which is why they need setup, it's at the start of your turn, right? Deal 2 damage to all enemies, which is a pretty powerful effect. In general, it's not going to matter for all decks, especially against control, but for certain board states, it's certainly an issue. And the fact that you're essentially able to dump 10 health worth of cards on turn 7, it's not like crazy good, but I don't think it's bad either. Again, it's going to get better if you can set things up where like maybe you play Strike Team on 7 and then you're able to, where if you have discounted drones, you can play the stealth drone, which like keeps your support turret alive. Who knows exactly how the curves are going to look or whatever. But I would say even as like budget Tau decks starting out, I feel like Strike Team is going to be fine. And it's just, again, you get to play it on 4 or you can play it on 7. I think it's better. Obviously, this card is a lot better because you can play it on 6, 7, and 8, right, and get value on it. Whereas this is 1 or 2 energy amounts. But I do think that Companion, just as a mechanic, like kind of in a vacuum, it's you're gonna figure out pretty quickly, like, is this card worth it? Because I think you're gonna play it with its like full mode activated. You're gonna be like, wow, this is super powerful, and you're gonna play it also on its like, its front side, if you will, right, without the companion stuff, and see if that's good enough. I don't know if Strike Team will hold up, but I certainly think that this the Enforcer Battlesuit will, and I think that companion cards are definitely worth looking at and not sleeping on. So and I do kind of like mechanics like this. I mean, obviously it's super on brand for Tau to have these drones as their companions. Like it seems like such a flavorful way to do it. But I do think that generally having these sorts of like catch-up mechanics or like modal sort of things in card games, not only do they tend to be like just like powerful, right, but I think that they just make it so that there are less games that feel bad, right? Because like, oh man, when I draw my 4-drop on turn 9, right, oh god, that sucks. Oh wait, actually now I draw my 4-drop on turn 9 and I get to spit out like 10 health worth of bodies on it. Oh, and I have something else to keep my drone up, right? So it almost feels like it makes games a little bit more healthy to have these sorts of mechanics. And I think it does reward, players who understand curve and understand, when things are worth it when they aren't. But I'm very excited for really all of it, but I really like the companion mechanic quite a bit. So let's get to our last one here. And maybe there will be other mechanics. I feel like 3 is probably where they're gonna top out, but I could be wrong, and maybe we got to make another video, so we'll see. Long range. This one was the one that we had to wait the longest for, pun intended. And it's kind of scary. I feel like this is the scariest mechanic in the sense of, if this operates well, there are going to be some moments where it feels very bad to play against Tau. So I'm a little hesitant when it comes to, like, how is this going to play out, and like how is it going to feel as a player to play against it. Playing with it, I imagine, is going to feel good, but we'll see. Maybe it'll also be underpowered. This is the kind of thing you just gotta go into the games and play. So before I just go off on another tangent, let's talk about what it is. When doing a ranged attack, enemies don't retaliate, lose this ability when attacked. So not only do we have Markerlight, which is basically allowing you to trade efficiently or do a ton of burst damage potentially on, with your ranged attacks, but now we also have things that are going to have better ranged attack that can take advantage of Markerlight, and they have long range, right? So I like the simple design of, like, but if they attack you first, you lose the ability, right? So it's like if they close the distance and get to you, you have no more long range. Now, on its face, if you're able to get long range to work every single time, it's going to be very powerful, right? Because no retaliation, right? Sniper, for those who know from the Eldari and also the Ultramarines, is really good, right? When you get that sniper proc and you just clear something for free, it just feels like you're getting away with murder. I imagine long range is going to feel pretty similar, except for the fact that sniper doesn't go away if you attack it, right? I mean, obviously, if you clear the enemy, it's no longer there, but sniper doesn't just fall off. Long range can. So this is sort of like an interesting meta consideration, where maybe there are decks that can either swarm or have enough flank units to really stop long range from being good, right? So I think your long range, it's basically going to be high risk, high reward is kind of how I'm seeing it. Is like, long range is very powerful, so there's a high reward for setting it up, but there's a huge risk that if it falls apart, you're losing quite a bit of value. So let's take a look at some long range cards. So we've actually got the Broadside Battlesuit, which was previewed, and it's actually got companion as well with missile drone, but it's also got long range. So what are we looking at here, right? So it's a 5-drop, it's got 5 health and 1 armor, so it's basically like Carnifex-ish stats, right? I think that's a solid comparison. But it's also got the upside that if you're not able to attack it, it's going to deal 6 uncontested damage. But it's also got companion 2 missile drone, and I think the missile drones, sorry, I should have brought that up, but on the screen here, I couldn't actually find it when I was looking for it earlier, but I think it's like they do some amount of damage, or they spread Markerlight. They're one of those drones. So again, you can probably play it on 5, 6, or 7, or if they cost 1, or if they cost 2, then it would be 5, 7, or 9. Feels like there's a lot of value packed into a card like this. So it all depends, right, on tempo. It depends on your kind of what your opponent's deck is doing. So I don't think long range is going to be like insanely powerful into every matchup. I think it will be good into certain matchups when you can kind of set up the game in a certain way, whether it's like setting up Vanguard units, stealthing units, and that's why I think the stealth drone is going to be pretty potent for a lot of decks. So like if you play stealth drone with this card, you play it on turn 7, you play the battlesuit for 5, you play stealth drone for 7, or for 2 rather, so 7 total energy, and then you pass the turn, right, and then on your following turn, they're not able to clear your battlesuit, and then you just blast them for 6 uncontested damage, right, on long range. So it's really hard to tell. Like, if you can consistently take long range off of these cards, then they definitely lose a bit of value. But for a card like this, you're already getting so much that it's not really going to matter. And let's go to our second card here, which is, I think a lot of people are very excited to see for today, which is the Long Strike. This thing has a lot going on. So it's 8 energy, 8 health, 4, 7 attack. Pretty similar stat line, right? Just like shifted the numbers from Hemlock Wraithfighter. It's got long range, but it's also got flank, which we haven't seen often. And it's also got Rally Markerlight 5 to an enemy troop. If it was unit, this card would be like really, really nasty. Or like even more busted. It's still a really nasty unit. I think we're definitely going to see this at the top of the curve for most town decks. And long range inherently is excellent on this card, right? Because you have flank. So obviously if it's just their warlord on the battlefield, this doesn't matter as much. But the fact that you can get the long range hit for 7 as soon as you come into play, no retaliate damage, that's huge, right? I mean, being able to clear something with 7 health with your long strike and not have any retaliation is just like crazy. And the fact that it's got Markerlight 5, I mean, you could clear some of the tankiest units in this game so easily with long strike. So with long range, it feels like definitely it's that high risk, high reward, right? If you can set it up, it's probably going to win you the game. But if you can't, it's going to fall off and do nothing, right? But as long as the cards still have enough value to them, long range is just gravy, right, on top of your meal. So I think what I would kind of caution is like probably question some of the cards that like just have long range as an ability, because that's like it's conditional, right? It may not stick. And anything that has long range plus flank, long range plus stealth, long range plus any sort of evasion, or like just even this guy, right? The broadside battlesuit. That's a mouthful. That just has like a ton of stats and like it's got companion. Like long range doesn't really matter. This card's just good. And it's just like icing on the cake here. So that's really what I wanted to talk about with you guys today. I'm super excited. I did, in fact, where is it? I think it shows. I did get the premium campaign for the Tau, and then I think they throw in 5 packs, and it's $20. I think it's probably the only deal that I'm gonna go for. I wish there were other cheaper deals for other things, but honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to like almost like when I first started playing this game on early access, like just going through the campaign, picking up what I think is good, cracking packs in the campaign, seeing what's out there. It's definitely one of the best, kind of values. And this is by no means a plug. Play it free to play. I've mostly been free to play, but I just thought that this would be a nice way to start. So it's up to what people want to spend. There's one that's basically like 30 packs and a bunch of cosmetics. I wouldn't recommend it. Packs are RNG, right? So it's like there's just no guarantee you're going to open what you want to open. So like that kind of creates a lot of like feels bad moments. Whereas the premium campaign, you're gonna get like the best bang for your buck, and you can kind of like craft where you want to go, right? Obviously, we're gonna need to open packs, but I still just think that will. It's hard for me to recommend opening packs when, and Ecclesiarch has talked about this too, when it just feels like you can get things that you don't want, and that just doesn't create positive feelings, let's say. So let none doubt that this is our time. I am pretty excited. In 3 days and 20 hours, we're gonna load it up and see how it all goes. So I'm super hyped for that. But let me know if you like the video. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And just was really excited to get this out today and just be getting that buzz going about the Tau, because it's just really, oh, there's someone talking about Markerlight right here. Yeah, I mean, it's just fun to be able to theorycraft about something completely new and take a look at it. So As always, thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you next time.